Welcome back to The Verdict, MLMIC's podcast, where we delve into the issues shaping healthcare in New York and beyond. I'm your host, Tammie Smeltz. Today, we are incredibly honored to have a very special guest joining us, the newly elected President of the Medical Society of the State of New York, Dr. David Jakubowicz. We're thrilled to welcome Dr. Jakubowicz as he shares his vision and plans for his presidency. This is a must listen for anyone interested in the future of healthcare in our state. Let's dive in. Good evening, Dr. Jakubowicz, and congratulations on being elected as President of the Medical Society of the State of New York, as well as being the first physician from the Bronx County Medical Society to hold this position. Can you tell our listeners a little bit about your history and experience as a physician in New York State?
Well, I just want to clarify, it's the first physician in 50 years in order to represent Bronx County. We have had some others, including like Dr. Van Etten, who's quite famous, who have represented the Bronx, but it's been the first one in 50 years. As far as my experiences, I'm a lifelong New Yorker. You know, my family came over from Poland in '69. I was born in '73. We grew up in Rockland County. My first home was in Spring Valley. My second one was in New City. I graduated from Clarkstown South High School. I then went to Cornell and got a BS in biology out of the ag school. Went to NYU for medical school, finished that in '99. Did residency at the Albert Einstein College of Medicine affiliated hospitals to 2004. Thereafter, I was a physician at an assistant attending at Maimonides from 2004 and 2006, where I was the youngest physician ever in their physician leadership program. From that, I ended up becoming chairman of Bronx Lebanon for otolaryngology for 8.5 years. And then I was also director of Med Alliance, ENT and allergy for another 3 years. And my current occupation profession is that I'm director of otolaryngology and allergy for SN Health, and I have been so for the last 7 years. So that's my achievement on my, professional side. When it comes to organized medicine, I've served at every level of the Medical Society of the State of New York, being on committees, on reference committees for the House of Delegates, special task force. I was counselor to New York and the Bronx for 3 years. I was chair and vice chair of the Young Physician section, served as vice president, president-elect, and now I'm president of this august organization since April 6th of 2025.
Wow, that's great. And let me just ask you out of curiosity, how old were you when you got involved in organized medicine? Was it right out of residency and fellowship, or did you wait a little bit of time? Do you remember?
It was right out of residency and fellowship. So I was not part of the medical student section. What kind of actually liability reform? There was an opportunity right after I got out of residency around 2000, 2001. We were talking about making some changes, and that's what really got me animated. First in organized medicine. I also did this with a colleague, friend, and fraternity brother of mine, David Podwell, where he and I would serve as chair and vice chair. So it turned out not only to be a fun thing to be involved in the policy aspects of it, but it was great for me socially because I had my best friend involved.
Oh, that's a great story. Now, I know you said that you've been involved in organized medicine at all various different levels. What is involved in serving as a delegate to the AMA? I believe you are a delegate to the AMA, correct?
I am. So basically, during our House of Delegates or other, delegates, basically bring resolutions forward that they want us to bring to the AMA. And then, so one of the things we have to do is try and advance the New York resolutions through the AMA. Now, the process at the AMA is not only is state societies, but there are also specialty societies. And now the organization's grown above 750 delegates. So if you want to get something passed, you have to work with all these specialty delegates, state delegates, in order to convince them that what we're trying to advance is in the best interest of the House of Medicine. The other thing that you need to do is you need to look at other people's resolutions that are coming in and determine whether you think this makes good policy as well. So literally every year at the AMA, we pass hundreds of resolutions. But, what also I was asking this year is that the House of Delegates plays a role in prioritizing them, because you can't pass hundreds and hundreds of things every year and make each one of those things the most important thing. So I tend to prioritize things that are about patient care, making sure that the practices can stay open and viable. Obviously, germane to our talk, I'm a big believer that our current tort system is broken, especially in New York State. And it just does not make sense. Like I just had a New York Times interview on this topic, and to me, it doesn't make sense. Same laws, vastly different outcomes. There's no reason that a state should have 6 different divisions as far as what people have to pay for insurance. And that's just basically bad implementations of the law. And we can go into that later. But it was liability that first got me involved. It's been my friends who's got me certainly hooked. As far as with the AMA, it's basically like MSSNY, but writ large with many more specialties. And what we're just basically trying to do is pass good resolutions that serve as a guide for policy. And now what I'm asking to go is to a level beyond, where we actually start prioritizing the policies in a way that best affect physicians' practices and the patients that seek care with them, to make sure that the healthcare system provides for the health and needs of our patients.
Okay, thanks for explaining and sharing all of that. It's very interesting, and I would imagine trying to get all those resolutions passed or agreeing on them is quite a negotiation, I would bet, at times between all of you.
It's, we have speakers that control it and use parliamentary procedures. There are times that we can't reach an agreement, and then it's referred to the council or to the board of trustees for them to make a decision as well. But yeah, people bring forward some amazing resolutions that warrant debate, and it can vary on things just like, the current issue where RFK Jr., the HHS fired all the people on the immunization task force. That happened when we were at the AMA, and there was a resolution that was crafted as an emergent response to that. So it is good at times that our organization's nimble enough to deal with breaking news and come up with really good policy.
Yeah, that's great. I guess the timing was perfect for everyone with that, with the HHS and you being at the AMA at the same time.
Honestly, I would have preferred not to have that at all, because one of my big concerns is undermining people's faith in vaccinations, especially measles, which has been one that's been around for 40 plus years. There really is no reason for an outbreak of measles. There certainly isn't a reason for death from measles. And anything that undermines people's faith in the safety and efficacy of vaccines just sows chaos and confusion and leads to morbidity and mortality.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. It's a scary situation right now with what's going on in our country. But you, as president of the Medical Society of the State of New York, have the ability to change some things. So what are your top priorities for your presidency?
My top priorities is to try and figure out those issues that are easily uniting, not just for our patients, but for physicians as well. So obviously making sure we get paid adequately for the services that we do. And, the budget does have an increase in Medicaid payments for physicians. So given with the one big beautiful bill, we are basically looking at the crosshairs of potential large cuts to Medicaid. one of my large interests are addressing some of the insurance issues and improving our communication and outreach. So we got close to getting a prior authorization bill passed. It was pulled at the last minute because the insurance lobby decided to send 10 lobbyists to the Senate and encouraged one of the senators to pull the bill in the last minute. So prior authorization is something that takes place after a physician sitting with the patient and they come to an agreement about how they're going to move forward, and then the insurance unnecessarily delays that decision-making process. And I wrote a piece where it talked about just making it more common sense, because right now there are no guardrails for the health insurance industry to create more and more barriers like prior authorization. There was no controls on them. There's no teeth to keep their feet to the fire. And truthfully, the way I penned it was, with the prior authorizations, if they denied something, they should call the patient, let them know here's another option and why that makes sense for them. Because you already made to a decision with the doctor, but now they're saying no, most of the time no, or no, but here are your other options. So what I basically wrote was, they really don't care because they're not making that phone call, and they shouldn't profit at our despair. Because once you end up being decided that this treatment is what you should be doing, and then it's not available to you, it's going to lead to confusion and chaos. Other things that I'm using as a priority for my year are common sense controls on the insurance industry as well. Currently, we know that United Healthcare is being investigated in at least 2, 3, or 4 different ways from the DOJ. Yet, in most circumstances, they have free reign to claim that any type of billing error is fraudulent, and then goes back 6 years, and then look at all the records. And then they believe in this thing called extrapolation, where they look at a few records and then apply to all those records that are involved. So physicians are under the gun where they can have 6 years of records looked at with just the allegation of fraud, not bringing to a third party like a court or an arbiter. And then they review the records, and then they'll take the money back based on some random extrapolations. Plus, there are these people, these companies that are hired guns that don't even do the basic coding reviews, but they're getting a percentage of the money back from anything that they get back from the doctor. It's a very adversarial environment, and I'm trying to make sure that there are controls on the insurance industry, which seems to be running amok in this country. We talk about the price or the cost of care, but when the money is not being used for care, but it's being used to drive profits or pay the C-suite, that's money that's not going to the care of that patient, which ultimately is where the money should be earmarked, whether it's from private insurance, whether it's from the public sector. Ultimately, it's the patient who's supposed to benefit from the monies that are provided, not third parties, and not subject to financial manipulations. Another thing is pharmacy benefit manager controls. So these vertical integrated organizations, where now, because they want to have these loss ratios, have created their own pharmacies or all their different layers in order to say, we can get you the best price for the drugs, but not delivering on them. One of the resolutions that I wrote was, if you go up to the pharmacist and you have a coupon code from GoodRx, and yet the pharmacist is asking you to pay more because of the great price negotiated by the pharmacy benefit manager, and you can get something cheaper on GoodRx, and now you are in a catch-22. Do I pay the higher price and have it go towards my copays and deductibles, or do I pay the lower price and it doesn't apply to that? and I'm just paying it outside of my health insurance. That's the type of thing I want to try and avoid for the patient. And then finally is working with stakeholders like MLMIC, working with some of the patient safety lobbies, trying to get meaningful liability reform in this state. One of the things that I wrote when I wrote the press release when Grieving Families Act passed for this last time was that in 2023, based on National Practitioner Data Bank data, the combined amount paid for medical liability in California and Florida was less than what we paid in New York. And they have 3 times the population. That got the attention of one of the writers in the New York Times and may be subject to an article. But I went through as far as the reasons for that in California and Florida, the term some use is caps. I just prefer guidance as far as what's the upper limit that these subjective things like pain and suffering should be worth. Because in this state, we have counties where liability insurance for a general surgeon is about $36,000 a year up in Monroe County. That same insurance is $160,000 plus in Nassau County. Same laws. Due to the arbitrary nature of jury awards and subjective findings, there is such a wide variation in payouts that really it is almost lives are worth the same upstate, downstate. There needs to be some common sense controls. And the Grieving Family Act adds 2 more arbitrary categories for the juries to give awards on top of the 9% statutory interest and all the other things that are going on. I believe the public has a right to know what's going on and what's driving physicians out of the state. And part of it is the just exorbitant costs, which I know you guys do as well as possible to keep down. But ultimately, insurance needs to get premiums in to cover the cost of all the liability, decisions, settlements on the other end. Otherwise, it's not sustainable. And truthfully, we've reached a point where it's not sustainable.
Yeah, I agree 100%. These are all very concerning issues. I feel like we could have 6 or 7 separate podcasts to discuss each one of them. And I really wish you the best in making some change, at least maybe on prior authorization and some of the other issues. I want to just briefly share the story because you were saying that these insurance companies should maybe give patients another option, right? We're not going to do this test, so maybe maybe you could qualify for this test, right? Even though your doctor is ordering this specific test for you. Well, my physician had ordered this new test, the CT of the heart, just to make sure, because my whole family has heart attacks and high cholesterol and all this stuff, right? So I was denied that test because of my family history, because I do have a family history of a father having multiple heart attacks and high cholesterol. So I called the insurance company. I'm like, that makes no sense. Like that somebody should get that test because that is their family history. So bizarre insurance rules is what I'm saying. I kind of experienced that myself firsthand, and I was just amazed at that response.
No, I mean, the cardiac scanning is, I'm probably going for that on Monday. My dad had a heart attack in his 40s. Luckily, I haven't needed medication, but if they really did care, they would actually explain to you why, not just put you on the phone that you're on hold for an hour, hour and a half, and you're lucky to get someone, and the English of that person may or may not be good, but you've had a good conversation with your doctor, or at least had a conversation as far as what is indicated per our guidelines. And then the insurance company, I don't know what they're using for guidelines, maybe the same AI, bot that created the MAHA report, but whatever reason they're creating the guidelines. But at a certain point, We don't need more confusion in our patients. The physician's there to help the patient, but the insurance company's making decisions, which almost are medical care. They're held harmless from any consequences from those decisions. Like, God forbid, you end up having a heart attack because it was missed on the cardiac scan that you were at high risk and you should have had a catheterization and you may have had to have a stent placed. But there's no consequence for them. The only thing that the insurance company is answering to is their stockholders, and that's wrong.
Yeah, I agree completely. Now let's take a little different path. MLMIC and MSSNY, right? We have a great relationship, and as you know, it's MLMIC's 50th anniversary this year, so we're really excited about that. And you're going to be at the gala. We're going to have this great celebration in a couple of weeks. What does the relationship mean to you specifically, the MSSNY and MLMIC relationship?
Well, obviously, New York physicians were involved in the creation of MLMIC. It is a tremendous resource as far as to protect us from the liability environment. It, demutualized a few years back, and many of the physicians who were paying premiums got a large check back when the demutualization happened. And going forward, MLMIC has a great leadership team that we work closely with. When I need actuarial figures, as far as, when I'm preparing for my different interviews on liability insurance, they're there for me. When it comes to supporting the physicians of New York, they're supporting our events. They're giving their legal resources as well. But most of all, it's so nice to have friends. And I can think of no better friend for the Medical Society of the State of New York than MLMIC and its leadership team. They are there when they need it. They support our counties. They support physicians. They help fight with us as far as the fight in order to make sure that liability insurance is low. And when it comes to other issues like Dr. Lombardo, he has a good understanding of the political environment as well. And it's good to be able to have him at our meetings to be a sounding board, not just for the liability issues, but also to help us on other matters as well. And the other thing is there are physicians that you employ in order to help review your cases and stuff like that too. So it does provide insight to a lot of our physicians about ways to avoid the pitfalls. Ultimately, no physician wants harm to come to a patient. The problems is when you're dealing with life, limb, and death, things can happen despite the best of intentions. And the goal is ultimately to try and improve the medical system so harms don't happen in the first place. I do not believe that the punitive awards really change as far as the outcomes for patients. And it just serves as a means in order to make the system more costly, make it much more adversarial than it needs to be. Because ultimately, when the patient's coming to me as an otolaryngologist and allergist, my job is to try and offer the best possible care for that specific patient based on that patient's sense of what's going on. Because ultimately, I need to have a discussion with that patient as far as whether they're comfortable or not taking a new medication, whether they're comfortable enough with the procedures that I may offer, and whether they have an understanding of what's the benefits and what are the potential pitfalls. And tying it back to MLMIC, the CME that they offer, the literature that they offer, helps really focus the physician on common sense things to do to avoid a case, and then to make sure that if a case occurs, that it's defensible. So without those resources, without the help of MLMIC, without the friendship, I don't think we'd be as strong a medical society, and I'm very grateful.
And we are grateful too. And I will say we are really proud of our legal and risk management services. They are so beneficial to the physicians throughout the state. But it warmed my heart that you said everybody needs a friend, right? And that is something that I personally enjoy about being involved with MSSNY and the medical societies. I'm in Buffalo, and I do consider the people, the leadership in Buffalo, Erie County, and Monroe County, my friends. We get together, and it's just a nice partnership. So I think, on behalf of all of MLMIC, we're really grateful for that sustained friendship year after year. So in talking about, MSSNY and the medical societies and MLMIC and what we kind of want to build together, that is the future of younger physicians, the next generation of physicians, right? Because we all hear that there might be a shortage coming up in 2030 or, years to come. And we want the students, residents, fellows involved in organized medicine, right? While they're still in school. So why do you think it's important that the next generation of physicians become involved in organized medicine? And should they really be involved as young as medical students?
We offer discounted we value it so much. We offer a discounted membership to medical students. My son is a medical student at Albert Einstein. Seems to be, at least, I have 4 kids. Seems like all of them would be interested. But as far as why, is if you're not helping guide the change will be put upon you without your input. Physicians need to own the profession. And if they're not there to help guide the elected representatives, then basically chaos occurs. Now, we've seen, because of Medicare not keeping up with inflation, that private practice of medicine, which used to be the primary way that people would practice, now is a 30% of the physician population. And I believe it's incumbent upon young physicians, medical students, residents to have options other than hospital employment. Being a hospital employee, being in private practice, I will say all of those are vastly different. And truthfully, the only way to help guide the profession, work with all the specialties under one umbrella, is through the medical society. We tend to become quite siloed in what we do. Occasionally, you need to kind of be able to look back, get perspective from other people, because if we continue to be divided, we won't be able to speak with one voice. And now, given all the things going on, it is so much more important that we can speak with one voice, or at least reach consensus. And we need all generations as well. Again, I'm 51. I'm mid-career. I used to be in the young physician section. I listen to the residents and I hear their thoughts on everything. I listen to the older physicians that were practice at a different time, and I hear some of their complaints as well. But the future of medicine is with the young. They need to own that future. And the strongest organizations for advocacy are the medical societies of each state, which are basically involved with 80% of the healthcare laws in this country, and then going to the AMA with the 20%. Now, there are other organizations like their specialty society and everything else, but all of them send representatives not only to the state society, but to the AMA. And truthfully, when you end up going to the Congress, they really want to look to maybe 1 or 2 different resources on these matters. And the best way to do that is to have a strong AMA, to have a strong state society, and of course, that you have a voice in making those changes going forward.
Okay, so we should really encourage our medical students to join their local medical society. And you said there was a discount, right?
Yeah, there's a discount. For many of them, it's even free. Okay. And then the other thing is that the job also should be that they not only join, but that their opinion is valued and that they're treated with respect. And that is I created a code of conduct. I made sure that you should be able to speak up without any fear of retribution. We're here just to advance the profession. Different generations speak in different manners. I know that I was considered probably a little surly when I first started out as well. But ultimately, not all voices matter, not only the loudest. And sometimes the quieter one may actually have a better option for moving forward. So part of my job as president is to hear all the opinions, try to come up with something that gets consensus. And it is extremely important to get younger physicians, especially those physicians who just moved to the state and are planning on staying here. So the young physicians or the early career physicians, they're the most valuable voices and the most valuable opinions in my thought as far as how we move forward in an organization. Of course, all voices matter, but for someone to say, this is why I moved to New York, these are the things that we need to fix in New York in order for me to stay in New York, that's quite a powerful thing for me to hear as president.
I think you're going to have your hands full for the next year. So I do truly wish you all the best.
Thank you. Thank you.
Now, before we say goodbye, do you have any advice or anything, one last thing you want to share with our listeners?
Yeah, get involved. We really need to fix the prior authorization. We need to fix liability reform. We need, in order to do that, not only your voice or your grassroots action when these things occur, but also money given to the PAC, your membership in the medical society, and then when you can, actually speak directly to your elected representative about the issues that you are facing. The only person that knows your practice or your family situation is you. And I encourage you to speak up. And if there's something that I can do better, I'm all ears. My job is to basically, aside from everything else, is to improve communication in the medical society, make sure we can make decisions on consensus quickly, and move with our friends like MLMIC in a manner forward that helps our profession and, most importantly, our patients.
Right. Well, thank you, Dr. Jakubowicz, for being a guest today. It was really my pleasure to get to know you a little bit, and I'm looking forward to meeting you at the gala and wishing you all the best for this year.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
And that's the verdict on MSSNY President Dr. David Jakubowicz. Physicians interested in joining MSSNY can visit their website at mssny.org. Thanks for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed this podcast. Remember to like, follow, and subscribe to The Verdict on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, X, and also YouTube. This podcast is for general purposes only and should not be construed as medical, dental, or legal advice. This podcast is not comprehensive and does not cover all possible factual circumstances. Because the facts applicable to your situation may vary, or the laws applicable in your jurisdiction may differ, please contact your attorney or other professional advisors for any questions related to legal, medical, dental, or professional obligations, the applicable state or federal laws, or other professional questions.